Hey, 10-minute book talkers, Katherine Reay here, and I'm with my co-hosts, Rachel Linden and Marie Bostwick. And we are so happy to be with you today. And we are so happy to have Janyre Tromp with us. And she has a gorgeous new book. And look at that title, Darkness
And
Calls
the cover.
the Tiger. Isn't the
Cool
cover
cover.
amazing? Look, the title's amazing. So,
It gives you
Janyre,
shivers.
yeah, tell us a little bit about your new book.
Okay, so I have to say, since you guys love the cover so much, the vibe of the cover is 100% this book. So the tiger is my main character. So that tiger is actually a true legend from the mountains of Burma. So this book is set in World War II Burma, and it takes all of these real stories of real people who lived in that time frame in the mountains of Burma, combines it with this legend of the tiger, and brings you this story of this missionary woman who descends into this really dark place, into vengeance against the Imperial Japanese soldiers who have completely destroyed everything that she has known and loved. And then what do you do with that? And so it's kind of this story that pits vengeance versus forgiveness and explores that whole realm of reality and human life. And then on the other side, all of my books tend to be kind of dark and explore really hard topics. But I always look for the hope and the beauty and the light, even when it's dark and hard.
That's a beautiful description of this story.
Wow.
Very good.
And I haven't read it yet, but I have a question first. Is this, so it's historical fiction, is it inspirational fiction, or what's the, because I know Kriegel does inspirational quite a bit. So what's the content?
So here's the deal. So it is because in reality, the people who were in the mountains were missionaries. And so they are going to talk about their faith, but it's a very cultural thing. It's very steeped into who they are. And it is not an easily done kind of faith. I don't believe in that myself. You guys, I think, know my story a little bit in that I almost lost my daughter multiple times due to crazy, weird medical issues. And so I have explored these topics in my own life, and I still wrestle with them. And these characters don't come out on the other side being like, la, life is grand, because it isn't. Sometimes the hardest parts of our life are the things that bring the most beauty. And so one of the things I often talk about, I often say, is that my stories look for beauty even when it isn't pretty. And so I want to learn those skills for myself. How do I find goodness and light and hope, even when life isn't awesome? Because it rarely is hunky-dory all the time, right? And so I believe in the power of story to help us see new perspectives and to dig into things and find new ways to bring people together and to move forward in our lives so we don't get stuck.
That is a pretty good job for a book. So I love that. I have to say, so Janyre, I'm probably the only one, but I have never, in fact, read a novel set in Burma. So this is like not the first place my brain goes to. I am just so curious about, like, what was your inspiration? Was like, what did you stumble upon that made you say, yeah, Burma, that's where we're going with this book?
Yeah, it is kind of out there, isn't it? So first, for everybody who doesn't know, where in the world is Burma? Because this is kind of one of those places that, who's heard of this? So Burma in contemporary language is Myanmar. So you may have heard of Myanmar. So Myanmar is wedged right between China and India. And so I actually had my college roommate was from India. She was actually from the mountains. And so I was in the Himalayan mountains with my roommate the summer between my sophomore and junior years in college. And so I kind of fell in love with this place, this jungles and the mountains. And you see mountains forever. From her house, you could see 7 ranges of mountains. It was just like mind blowing. There's nothing in the States like it, right? So I had this in my head from college, and I was looking for a World War II story that has never been told. And if you guys know anything about World War II, that's a hard hard thing to find.
World War II fiction, that's a very hard thing.
It's
Yeah,
a very
find
hard
an
thing.
untold story.
Untold stories, right? So I was talking to my mom, who is the wealth of wisdom. If you don't know my mom, she's amazing. And she said, well, this friend of a friend was in India as a missionary at the time, and they did something with World War II. And my immediate reaction was, there was nothing going on of World War II in India. Yeah, well, okay. So mom schooled me. And indeed, this friend of a friend was in India and had a part in rescuing the Allied soldiers that, or the Allied pilots that were downed over the Himalayan mountains. So now I'm all like, oh my word, I have never heard about this. And I started researching all of the stories that happened in India. It's the China-Burma India Theater. So it's a completely separate theater of war. It's shortened to CBI, often called the Forgotten War because nobody's ever heard of it. So it's very appropriately titled. And basically the China-Burma India Theater was when the Japanese attacked mainland Asia. They were trying to take over China, and they took over the entire country of Burma in a matter of weeks. I mean, they just went in and decimated everything and then got stopped in the mountains. And the reason is because the mountain people were a different ethnicity from the body of Burma. And those mountain people allied with the West because of the missionaries. So there were people like Father James Stewart, and Father James Stewart was from Ireland. He was Irish and literally would step into the road and convince the Japanese soldiers to turn around and not destroy the kitchen villages up in the mountains. Right?
So
like mind-blowing.
in doing this research and coming across Father Stewart, was this all book or primary sources, or just a little cracking open of the research here? This is extraordinary stuff.
Well, and you need to know, I'm a research junkie. So I'm kind of known for my getting lost in historical factoids and fun things, and then like weeding out all of the things that aren't pertinent to the story, but then you're left with all this cool stuff left behind. So I have a mix of primary sources. So Father James Stewart didn't write anything, but one of the missionary families that I stumbled across, it's the Morse family, and randomly they are related to the guy who invented Morse code, because why not? Right. And so I have their story, and their sons actually were people who were rescuing the downed airplane pilots. Thank you. The guys who flew in things from the Himalayan mountains. And so there's little bits and pieces of them in my main character of Kylan. There were a couple of stories from the guys who were part of the OSS Detachment 101. So the Americans literally airdropped officers into the mountains to recruit Kitchen people, and it was part of the OSS, so the precursor to the CIA, the OSS, and it was a Detachment 101. And there is a whole thing called the Kitchen Rangers, and the Kitchen Rangers is actually where a lot of the modern day US Special Forces tactics came from, that group.
Wow.
There's all kinds of crazy history here that nobody's heard of, that I'm like digging in and going, you've got to be kidding me. How do we not know this?
How do we not know about all this?
How do we not know about this? And so Kylan, who's my main character, who is the one that is the tiger on the cover, she actually attaches herself to the Detachment 101 forces and becomes a guerrilla fighter. And you can imagine when she takes on this persona of this tiger, how dark she goes and how deep she is in. And that was a really hard thing to write, honestly, taking myself into that dark place. I did wonder if I would ever pull back out, if I'm being honest. I mean, I think a lot of us authors that write darker things have those moments where we're like, I need my counselor now. But I always knew she would get to the other side. And then Ryan is the exact opposite. He's a lot like Father Stewart, who is funny and lighthearted and very dedicated. and very willing to go to dark places and pull people out. So I knew he was there for her. So.
Okay, so you have this amazing story that you've stumbled upon with all kinds of things that I'm sitting here going, yeah, how do we not know about this? This is crazy. So obviously you've hit upon this this gold mine of information that about World War II that has not been told yet, which is amazing. But I'm curious on a more kind of human, like the human aspect of the story. What is it that you're really hoping, you know, what's the main theme? What are you really hoping readers walk away with at the end?
Right. So we talked about it a little tiny bit. So the core of the story really is that forgiveness question. When you see everything, when everything is taken away from you and you feel like you have nothing left, is there a way out?
Mm-hmm.
Can you find a way through? Is there really hope? Can you really get there? And it was really important for me to answer that question because I was finishing this book when my daughter was sick. And so it was important for me to find that pathway. And so if nothing else, I want readers first, I mean, it's an entertaining book. Let's be honest about that. It is a hard read, but it is like,
it is nonstop. Page turner. Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's what fiction is all about, right? We all want to read books to like, be like, oh my gosh, this story and these people. But I want people to walk away knowing that there are ways through.
Yeah.
We can find a path to the other side. And if you aren't there yet, that's okay, because there's a yet there. You're not there yet. That means it's still coming.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward.
I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing all of these aspects of this story. This has been an amazing discussion. But before I let you go, I'm going to ask you one last thing. And Janyre Tromp, what is bringing you joy today? Speaking of light.
You guys,
you've got something in mind.
This is like, so my daughter, she had all those health issues. She's doing great. I just packed up her dorm room today. She gets to come home tomorrow.
Oh, that's so fun. I can't believe we're close to summer already. Oh my goodness.
Crazy.
Where's the time going? Oh, that's
lovely.
Fabulous. Congratulations.
Celebrate.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that is fabulous. Okay, hold up your book one more time. And I've got it on, I read it on Kindle. So there it is. All right, everybody, Darkness Calls the Tiger is a compelling, deep read. Yes, there are those moments of darkness, as there are in any and all of our lives, and you would certainly expect them during World War II. But as she says, that thread of hope is so strong and that light is there, and that's a beautiful thing. So thank you, Janyre, for sharing your story with us, and thank you all for being here today. And we'll see you next Wednesday at the 10-Minute Book Talk. Bye-bye.